everyone, it's Renee with Delaney Jane Cards. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have another design team video for you for the Not Too Shabby shop. Jamie has a rewards program over at her shop, www.nottoshabbyshop.com. Go over there and check it out. N2S10 will also give you 10% off of most things in her store. So today I am making my very first light up card. I have had this Chibi Tronics intro kit in my drawer since 2015. I was so scared of it. The stamp set I'm playing with here is a Jessica Lynn Original. It's called Brentwood Let's Go Camping. Jessica Lynn Originals is actually right here in Wisconsin where I live. So that's why I chose the stamp set, because I wanted to support somebody from the great state of Wisconsin. What I started to do here was to create a scene for our little Brentwood, who's the owl, to go camping because, well, he says, let's go camping. The Distress Oxide inks blend really nicely on dark cardstock. So I chose a couple of them here and blended on kind of a night sky and then blended over a stencil to add a little star detail. Used my Ranger little, I don't know what it, little spritzer thing to add some sparkle to the sky. And then I made sure that I had enough sky on there so that my grass covered up the black part. And then I stamped out my images. I stamped the little Brentwood with the bear. And I stamped the fireplace. Now I do have the colors across the bottom of the screen if you enjoy coloring. If not, you could skip ahead and I will leave the timestamp in the description box below for where the coloring is done. But Brentwood here, I thought I would really include the coloring because I chose a very different color combination, as you see. It is E74, E79, RV99, and V06. It gave him this really cool purple brown look, and I thought it would be really interesting, and I thought it would play really nicely with the yellows and oranges that are in the fire. Because purple and yellow and orange kind of look cool together, in my opinion. So I colored him up here, and I used some pretty traditional combinations for everything else that I had here. And I used a blue here for the top of his pajamas. I think they're pajamas. I don't know. Do you wear pajamas when you sleep in a tent? Or do you keep your clothes on in case the bears come? And, you know, there's a bear. So I'm thinking it's probably not pajamas now that I look at it. It's probably just regular clothes. And he's probably running out of that tent because there's a bear. I would be running. I would be running all sorts of crazy. So I used the same blues to do the bottom stripes on, I don't know, his pajamas, his pants, whatever they are. And I alternated the stripes with a khaki color. I just thought that tone of brown was really nice neutral for that. And as far as the tent, I used the same neutral combination that I used for his pants stripes. I did try to just use all the same colors that I had gotten out. You'll see that even when I color the fire, I'm pretty much recycling all the colors. But what I did here with the tent is I colored the whole thing, but I used the lightest color, the E81, where I knew the light from the fire was going to reflect. And I, put the darkest color in the opening, like what would be the cavern of the tent, and around the edges. And then there is a shadow where the tent flap would be like folded over. But I didn't want to add too much darkness there because of the way that I'm going to set up the scene. I really needed to make sure I left space for the glow from the fire. So I finished up the tent here, and then before I finished up the rest of the Brentwood image, I went on to the fire pit. I figured I needed to establish what tones I was going to use in the fire so that I could bring them back to Brentwood and give him the glow that I really wanted. And that's where I chose this Y08. I highlighted the stones around the fireplace, and then I brought that over to the tent and to Brentwood. And because Copics are transparent, I was able to color directly over his blue and tan pajamas. Is it? I don't know. Have we decided yet? Is it pajamas? Uh, and it actually gives a glow there. And then I also went across his eyes because his eyes would also have a yellow glow if he's staring at the fire. I have spent plenty of nights camping, looking at a fire pit. When I was younger, teenager, we went camping as a family. We always did, and was one of the things that we really enjoyed doing together. And we were sitting around the campfire, and apparently I had my feet on one of the rocks and was sitting in my chair, and I had fallen asleep. It must have been later than everyone else because nobody woke me up. The next morning when I got up, the fire had melted the bottoms of my shoes to the shapes of the rocks. My shoes were no longer good. I had to just make do till we were done camping. I think that was a Saturday night, so it wasn't too much longer before we went home, but I remember that to this day, and I'm still not a fan of people putting their feet up on the rocks. I think it was a very cold night. So I colored the bear there with the same browns that I used for Brentwood. I didn't add the purple in because I really wanted him to stand out. And then you see here, I forgot the space between his legs that would be, inside the tent. And then I colored just the bottom portion. I cut it off so there would be a little grass because I did make that little grass hill. And for that, I used an Avery L dye, and I die cut it out of the black cardstock and then inked it over with the green distress ink. I wanted it to have that same nighttime look. And then I picked a sentiment for the top corner of my card here. And so far, we're just making a card. So far, we're at the point where we are making a card, and I know how to do all of this. I haven't had to teach myself anything. I haven't had to read anything. I haven't had to cross my fingers at any point to see if it's going to work. But that is going to be over really quick. So what I did is I put two pieces of this black cardstock together. I wanted to make sure that no light shined through where I didn't want it to. And then I used this tiny little hole punch to punch some holes in the background. And then I have a piece of very thick vellum behind it. And then I have the grass and the fireplace. And I was just marking where the fire was going to be on my scene because I want to die cut that. So I pulled out one of my small circles from my Nellie's dies. If you've watched my channel at all, you've seen that those are some of my favorites. There's no reason to replace something that works. I got them at a craft expo years ago, and they are my friends. I'm friends with them. So then I adhered, first I colored the vellum, where the holes were for the stars and where the little fireplace hole was. And then I added a little glow with the squeezed lemonade distress oxide here around where the fire was going to be, and then added my little grass. And I made sure that I only put the adhesive down at the bottom so I could tuck Brentwood in. I wanted to make sure that he was kind of hiding, that his tent was kind of behind the edge of the grass. And then I needed to make sure his little toes peeked out because I took so long coloring them. And then I added the fire. So here's the Chibi Tronics kit that I have. It has 3 little lights. It has a battery. It's some copper tape. And I have seen people put these together, but like I said, this has been in my drawers since 2015. And I have not found a time where I was not scared of making this. I know a watch battery is going to burn my house down, but you never know. This battery, as I learn, will not burn my house down, and it apparently has a shelf life, and it is less than 5 years, just so you're aware. The shelf life on a CR2032 watch battery, not 5 years. And thankfully, my husband was at work, and I was able to call him later and say, hey, this does not work. So here's where I am trying to learn all of the things. So you'll see here I put the pluses and the minuses on there, but didn't put them on in the right place, because when I add the lights, I put them on, I don't know. I got it all messed up somehow. But in the end, I do get it right. And spoiler alert, it does light up at the end. But right now, this is how you build it. I will say that there is some newer light kits on the market. I know that my friend Amanda at Pear Blossom Press has some kits that I heard make things a little less steppy, make things a little easier, so they're not like a 17-step process here. But what I was doing is running the copper tape from the place where it's going to touch the battery when I fold that little housing over to the places where I have the little X's, which is kind of where all the lights need to be so they shine through my card. But I guess there's a kit out there that makes this super easy. And one of the reasons that I have not made a card like this is because they are really thick. If you've watched my channel any length of time, you know that I try to keep the foam tape or dimension of my cards down to one foam layer. It allows my cards to be mailable, all one stamp mailable. They don't need any special processing. They don't need anything extra special, just one stamp. This card is going to have to be a hand-delivered card. I do have somebody in mind that I think it would be great for, but right now, yeah, we are learning that the battery is dead right about now. I mean, I was like, I did this right. I even texted my friend and I said, this looks right, doesn't it? And she said, yes, it does. She gave me a couple of tips to check my battery, which I didn't know. And here I called my husband. Please, please, please bring me a battery home. And he did. He really did. He was very, very sweet, and he brought that home for me. So here is where my friend says, take a piece of the copper tape and take one of the lights and run a piece of copper tape from one of the lights to the battery, and then from one of the other ends, from the other end of the light to the other side of the battery. And if it doesn't light up, then you know your battery is dead. And it did not light up. So this is where I was 100% sure that my battery was just dead and that my circuit was fine, or at least I hoped it was fine. So I finished the foam tape. And here amateur move, 100% amateur move, I am putting down 2 layers of foam tape. And it doesn't turn out to be enough. That little piece that I put next to the battery, I wanted to make sure that I could lift that little housing flap back up so I could change that battery when he came home to save the day. So I used my strap and tap by Scrap Perfect to take the little sticky off of that piece of foam tape. And then I just strategically put all of the foam tape on. And then he brought me home a battery and it worked. So I stuck this together and then it stayed on. And I was like, oh no. So I carefully, and I mean, I was holding my breath. Because I had worked so hard on this. Oh my gosh. I'm getting nervous just watching myself do this. And I pulled it off and see, look, I made it all work. But then I noticed that the lights, they probably have, like an expiration date on the adhesive that's on them too. Like, you really shouldn't leave stuff like this lay around for 5 years and then wonder why it doesn't work. If you have something like this, just go for it. It's not that big of a deal. Just use it. So I did take little tiny pieces of the copper tape and I just kind of re-secured the little lights, and then I checked every single time to make sure that everything worked. Like touched it over and over and over, and it was like the most fun thing. And then I used the 3rd row of foam tape because I needed to make sure that it wasn't going to be on all the time when I mailed this. Well, I'm not going to mail this, but when somebody puts this somewhere or I, hand it to somebody, I don't want it to be the battery to be burnt out. And then I have these tiny little stars, and they are also from Scrap Perfect. They have like these sets of little tiny, super tiny embellishments, and these little stars were so adorable, and I thought they would be super fun in the sky. I already had the sprinkles from the Ranger spritzy bottle thing, and then the holes that are going to light up. And then I have the little stars, and I thought, oh, that is just so fun. I was trying to show that you can see that the fire is glowing. It'll glow through that one layer of cardstock just fine. And that's why I put the 2 layers of black together. And it's really thick, heavy cardstock, that black. It's actually from Clear Path Paper. I get it in 12 by 12 sheets, and it's really, really thick, and it's really super black. But I still used 2 pieces there. And then I hand wrote the word press because, like I said, this is the first time I've made anything like this. So I don't have a stamp set hanging around that would say press on it. And then I added a piece of gray cardstock to my card base, which is clearly cut not right. So I had to fix that. I get my cardstock for my card bases from my local Michaels, and I don't know, sometimes it's just, I think their machines don't know how to measure, or the people that set them up. Their paper is not always cut right. It's something that's easily fixed for me, but if that kind of thing is going to annoy you, don't buy it there. And then in my new season of finishing the inside, I did absolutely finish the inside with just a cute little scene. There's no sentiment on the inside. I just thought it was super adorable. And I stamped it in that Shadow Gray by Ranger. It's one of my only gray stamp or ink pads that I have that isn't like Distress Oxide. Then I added glossy accents to Brentwood's eyes and the bear's eyes and nose, and also to Brentwood's beak. I just thought that that would be super pretty. And there is some still shots of my cards, starting with the inside. You can see the little fire scene. I thought it was so cute. And here is the fire itself. And you can see all them different colors in there. And I did sparkle it up because it's fire. And here's this cute little bear poking around the outside. I mean, I would be running if I was in my pajamas or if I was dressed. And there it is all lit up. And I think it's so cool. I think it's awesome to make a card like that. I normally don't. Anyway, N2S10 will get you 10% off at Jamie's shop. Stop by, check it out, and see what she has in the shop. And as I always say, give cards generously, and I can't wait to chat with you in the comments. Bye!